You had your eyes closed and didn't know better during part of the meeting today between President-elect Obama and the nation's governors. You might have assumed the president-elect was a Republican. At one point, he embraced the theory that government is sometimes most helpful when it gets out of the way.
If you tell me that this program or this regulation is hampering us from doing smart things that will advance the interests of our state, then you're going to have a ready ear. And that is going to be something that I want everybody to understand.
Again, those are Republican governors cheering there. Joining us now is Republican strategist Ron Christie and Democratic strategist Ari Melber, who's a regular contributor to The Nation magazine. And Ron Christie, are you jumping for joy these days? I mean, Barack Obama picks a center-right economic team. He puts Republicans Gates and Jones and Warhawk Clinton in his national security team. And he says to the governors today that he agrees government should get out of their way.
David, you know me, I'm always jumping for joy, but in all seriousness, I had to do it. In all seriousness, look, I think that there's one thing that you say on the campaign trail when you're making promises and you want people to vote for you, and it's something entirely different when you have to govern. I think with the economic crisis facing this country, I think with the national security issues that we face with 2 wars and 2 different theaters around the world, I think the president-elect is being pragmatic and choosing those individuals who can help him best recover from the economy as well as deal with the national security issues that we face. So I don't look at this as being a Republican choice. I view it as the president-elect is showing a bit of pragmatism in his new national security and economic teams.
Ari Melber, were the Democrats who opposed the war and wanted some dramatic changes from the Bush way of doing things, were they looking for pragmatism or were they looking for a Democratic way of doing things? I mean, where's the language, where are the nominations that reflect that the Democrats want a convincing victory?
Well, if anyone thought that Barack Obama is supposed to sound like a radical liberal, they haven't been paying attention. He has often been very good at taking progressive ideas like domestic spending, the stimulus, and getting out of Iraq, and broadening the base of support, both in how he talks about them and who he chooses to work with. So I do agree with Ron that it's not about labels at this point. It's about conquering these big problems. And as far as I'm concerned, if we can get a reform of the Washington power structure and the way that we fund campaigns, if we can end the war in Iraq and have a $500 billion stimulus to help people, particularly working class people, I don't care what you call it. You can call that center right. If it's helping people, I think it's a good thing.
How do you have a reform of the Washington power structure when you have so many of the Washington establishment who are part of Obama's cabinet?
Well, I do think that's a good point, and I think that he's going to have to be very careful here. There are people like General Jones, for example, who was for closing Guantanamo years ago and who agrees with Barack Obama in that position, and the question will be, do they do it? If they make change on that, then we're going to have, I think, a lot of support for that around the country. I do think there are benchmarks. If there is not a strong withdrawal from troops from Iraq, for example, people will oppose that. But again, I do think people will oppose it on the policy, not on the people.
And Ron Christie, clearly Republicans are liking what they've heard so far as far as the pragmatism that you've described. But where do Republicans draw the line with the Obama administration? I mean, what's a particular issue that you can see where the Republicans ought to put up a fight?
Taxes, David. I think that what we've heard on the campaign trail, the president-elect talked a lot about redistributing the wealth and increasing taxes. I think we all want the president-elect's administration to succeed, but Republicans will draw a line if the Democrats seek to raise taxes or to seek to move the country in a way that is not a centering, governing philosophy. In other words, we want to make sure that we stay center-right rather than lurch to the left, raise taxes, and hurt our military.
Ari Melber, do the Democrats believe it's okay for Barack Obama to push off the idea that you might raise taxes on the wealthy? Barack Obama suggested he would, as a source of government revenue, increase taxes on people making more than $250,000. It now seems as if Obama on that issue as well is moving towards the Republicans. Is that okay with Democrats?
I think you're going to see Democrats in the progressive base very concerned on the economic issues that we have accountability. So yes, that means that richer people and richer households should pay their fair share, and it also means having accountability in the markets where you had people running wild, and they're still, as you mentioned it earlier in the segment, looking at potentially large compensation. That's about accountability. You're going to have a moral hazard if you don't address that, both in oversight and, yes, in people paying their fair share. We had a massive transfer of wealth from working class to the ultra-rich under the Bush administration tax policies.
All right. I'm always loath to cut you off, my friend, but that's just not true. I mean, if you look at the people, percentage of income, the people who are making the most in this country are paying the most in taxes. We don't need to have Robin Hood and have redistribution of wealth. When we have a recession like the one that we're in right now, the last thing that we need to do is raise taxes that will cripple the economy.
Well, we had an election. On the show is have a debate when Barack Obama's not even willing to have this debate just yet with Republicans. In any case, Ron Christie, Republican strategist, and Ari Melber, regular contributor to the magazine The Nation. Thank you both so much for coming in. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, David.